Angels Care Home Health, serving Hayes and the surrounding areas, is a Medicare-certified home health agency providing quality skilled nursing and restorative therapy services to patients in their homes.
I would recommend Angel Care to anybody. They have really helped me regain my strength.
Angels Care is there to help 24 hours a day, and all services are covered 100% by Medicare for patients who are eligible. Angels Care Home Health. We serve patients.
I couldn't have survived this without Angels Care.
Eagle Community Television presents Community Connection with your host, Mike Cooper.
Hello and welcome again to Community Connection from Eagle Community Television. Thanks for watching, and thanks as always to our producer, Jeff DeRoll. We're at a location in Hayes as we talk with Ellis County Extension Horticulture Agent Holly Dickman. Holly and former now retired K-State forester Jim Strine were on the morning show with Boomer and Mike recently talking about trees and drought stress that we're experiencing. We thought maybe for our community connection folks it might be a good idea to revisit that with Holly as we talk about drought stress in trees. Well, let's begin with the moisture or lack thereof, Holly. In August and September, Joe Becker at the Ag Research Center has recorded less than a half an inch in each of those months. Extremely dry conditions continue. How does that affect trees?
Well, it's not good, to put it bluntly. You know, we have had some pretty extreme weather conditions over the last about 5 years that have really been hard on trees, and it's very difficult sometimes to explain to people that the symptoms we are seeing now may not be the result of those 2 dry months we just endured, but might actually be from years ago. Trees have a more delayed response to drought, and so, you know, during those extremely hot, dry years of 2011, 2012, when we were really in the depths of some of that extreme drought, we had a lot of root damage occur on some of our trees. We had a lot of stress, and so some of those things are still showing up at this time. Now, we did have some decent moisture early in the spring, which is great. That helps things maybe recover a little bit, but then when you get those extreme hot, windy, dry months like we had in August and September, things go downhill pretty quickly, and we're seeing a lot of stress around the area.
So if we have a 2-inch rain sometime in the near future, it's not going to immediately refresh and replenish the
right.
trees.
It's, you know, it's great. We need it, definitely, and it would definitely be a benefit to the trees, but it's not going to instantly fix the damage that has occurred over the last 5 years on some of our big mature trees.
And does that affect different species of trees? Are some more tolerant of dry conditions than others, Holly?
There are certainly trees that are more adapted to our conditions here, things that are native to the area like hackberries, you know, oaks native to eastern Kansas. They certainly do well here as far as bur oaks, English oaks, those types of things, honey locusts, some of those trees that you see growing around the area that are just doing really well. But we have trees such as, you know, the ash trees, the cottonwoods, the maples that just don't do well here at all. You know, those trees have really struggled because a lot of times you see those trees in areas where there is a little more moisture. Ash trees and cottonwoods grow generally along creeks and rivers, and so when we have them in our yards in the middle of Hayes, those conditions are not the same as they would be next to the creek, and so those trees really do suffer. So it's important to have those adapted trees for the area.
Well, now as we look to the viewpoint that Jeff has set up for us here at this particular location, we have trees behind us here that are showing different levels of stress, it would appear. Tell us about some of the trees and what you're seeing here.
Right. Well, we have a good variety of trees to look at here, and we're seeing some crab apples behind, or a crab apple behind us, and I've seen a lot of stress on those. Those are trees that can have some issues with iron chlorosis, and allergies are getting to my eyes here. But iron chlorosis has been an issue on some of our trees in the past several years. Some of that can be aggravated by extreme drought stress. Extremely dry soils can make those symptoms worse. The other symptom that I've seen, or condition I've seen, is overwatering. If people are, you know, really concerned about the water that their trees are getting, they may be inclined to give them a little too much, and that can cause iron chlorosis symptoms be even worse. There's some ash or some elm trees behind us. The elm trees have been hit hard with some elm leaf beetle damage in the past 2 years. Now, whether that's related to the drought, it's hard to say, but in general, trees that are stressed which most of our trees have been, are more prone to insect and disease problems. And so I have been getting a lot more calls about insect problems, borers, and then also diseases, canker diseases, and just leaf spot diseases, and things that we may not see on trees that are not as stressed.
A couple of interesting points you made, Holly, once again. If trees are experiencing drought conditions, they are under stress, they are more prone to insect damage.
Right. A healthy tree can defend itself against some of those attacks by borers. I mean, borers, there's many different species of borer insects, they are around. But if you have a healthy tree, they're more likely to defend themselves against a minor attack. If the tree is under stress, it's almost like the insects sense that. And so they attack that tree. And a lot of times borers will move in on a tree as a secondary pest onto that tree that's already stressed or starting to decline or struggling from other means. So it is interesting to see the amount of at least the phone calls I've been receiving have been related to borer problems, or in some of the ornamental type trees, there's been a lot of canker disease, split bark, saw a lot of that this year as well.
And the second point you made about overwatering, if somebody's overwatering a lawn, for example, which is another area that we need to revisit because some people haven't gotten the message yet, unfortunately. But if you're overwatering the lawn more frequently, you're overwatering the trees in the lawn and thereby causing some damage as well.
Right. It's very hard to properly water a yard and a tree in the same area. You know, our cool season lawns such as tall fescue and Kentucky bluegrass do not need to be watered every day. You want those roots to go deep, so if you water deeply, those roots will grow deeply, and then when we have periods of dry weather, they can withstand that. If you're watering every other day, or maybe sometimes even every day, that soil stays really saturated. Those roots stay right there at the surface because they need oxygen as well. And so then you end up with a lawn that's very prone to drought stress when we have a period of really hot, windy weather. So trees are the same way. Roots need oxygen. If a tree is in the middle of a Kentucky bluegrass lawn that's being watered every single day, that can be detrimental on those tree roots. You do need to actually soak the soil deeper to water a tree down to a depth of 12 to 18 inches. And if you just are watering the lawn to a depth of 6 inches, that is not adequate for a tree. So, you know, I get that comment a lot. Well, I water the lawn, so the tree's getting moisture. But really, when we are as dry as we've been, you need to soak the tree roots to a real good depth.
And where's the best place to put that water as far as the trunk of the tree, the canopy of the tree?
Well, tree roots, especially on some of the larger trees we're sitting here amongst, those roots can stretch way beyond the canopy. So it's impossible to water every single area where those tree roots might be. But usually what we say is underneath that drip line, underneath the canopy of the tree, you don't have to be right up against the trunk of the tree, but out underneath the canopy to the drip line is a really good place to concentrate that watering.
Let's talk a little bit about some of the water techniques also that you stress. The method is infrequent but very deep for trees. The frequency of watering for trees.
Well, if you have a big mature tree, I usually will recommend that people soak to a depth of 12 to 18 inches. And this can be done either just with a slow trickle from your garden hose, or sometimes people like to use soaker hoses, which are the hoses that seep water. They might wind one of those around underneath the canopy of the tree and just let that seep. You could also take buckets or big containers with little holes punched in the bottom of them, fill those up and let the water drip out or trickle out really slowly. That's another option. There are different ways to get that moisture down. As far as frequency on a big mature tree, I would say if you're soaking it to a depth of 12 to 18 inches at least every couple of weeks or every few weeks when we're really hot and dry and windy and have had no rain, then that would be adequate. If you have a newly planted tree, the watering would need to occur a little more often, so maybe once a week.
Give us a couple of tips for the coming winter months now in protecting these trees, let's say mature trees that we'd be talking about for the coming winter.
Well, as we've mentioned, it's been extremely dry, and as of today, when we're taping this, it's still very dry. And so I'm encouraging people to give those trees something. If it's practical, if it's allowed in your community, water those trees deeply to a depth of 12 to 18 inches and send them into winter with some moisture. Especially if we go into the fall really dry, you still can go ahead and water, even if it's Thanksgiving time. You can go out, if we've had no moisture, soak those tree roots one last time before we get into the really cold months of January and February. That will help lessen some of that wintertime stress, especially if you have evergreen trees that keep that foliage all winter long. They still lose moisture out of that foliage. So if we have warm conditions during the winter time, you can have some drying going on and you end up with some winter injuries. So you want to send them into winter with some moisture.
I'd like for you to promote too your list of trees that are not only somewhat drought tolerant, but also appropriate for this area.
Right, well, fall is an excellent time to plant trees, and so we've been talking quite a bit about that, and we do have a list of recommended trees for northwestern Kansas specifically. So if you're interested in looking for things that are drought tolerant, adapted to our area, we have that information available at the Extension office.
Also tells you about the growth rate, tells you about how large they'll get, those types of things.
Right.
It's really a complete list.
Yeah, we have things separated out by size. So if you're looking for a small ornamental tree versus a large shade tree, we have that separated out, as well as ones that maybe are a little more drought tolerant or low water use trees.
And a couple of final points. When you're going out and have been visiting with people, which I know you like to do and are really good at it too, we might add, what have you been getting this summer and early into fall here?
One of the biggest things, I guess, late in the summer and into fall is that a lot of people get concerned about things affecting the leaves. Tree leaves are turning brown, or they have spots on them, or something's eating them. And so I've explained over and over, it seems, here this summer that, as long as it's just affecting the leaves, not damaging the branches or the trunk, the tree is still very much alive. It's not something that's going to overall hurt the health of the tree, most likely, especially this late in the year. So even if the leaves have something wrong with them, don't despair. That tree is probably fine as long as those branches and trunk is in good condition.
And in our final minute or so, Holly, pine wilt update for us. I know we've been talking about this for several years now. Where are we?
We are still, I would say, in a holding pattern where it is a big problem east of us, but not west of us. So I consider that a good thing because that means that we're actively trying to control it. Pine wilt is that disease that kills trees, and there is no cure. So Austrian and Scotch pines especially are affected. And we have had some active pine wilt in the area. As of, this past month, I've had a positive diagnosis. So it is still out there. So if you see a pine tree that dies quickly within a matter of weeks, please let someone know, whether it be the City of Hayes, the district forester, or myself, and we can come and take a sample and have it tested. If it comes back positive, then we have to have that tree removed and destroyed before springtime to help prevent the spread of that disease.
Great information on drought stress in trees, and of course Holly Dickman always available through the Ellis County Extension Office to go on location to help you with some questions or problems, whether it's lawns or plants or trees, through the Ellis County Extension Office and K-State Research and Extension as well. Always great information, always fun to talk with Holly Dickman, our Community Connection.
Angels Care Home Health, serving Hayes and the surrounding areas, is a Medicare certified home health agency providing quality skilled nursing and restorative therapy services to patients in their homes.
There's not any words to describe their kindness.
Angels Care is there to help 24 hours a day, and all services are covered 100% by Medicare for patients who are eligible. Angels Care Home Health. We serve patients.
They saved my life.